it. So today is really about just talking about a broad understanding, or to get an idea of what goal-based financial planning is, as well as what cash flow-based financial planning is, and what that means to different people. Because I don't think everybody understands it in the same way, not everybody sees it in the same way. And most definitely, I don't think that one is better than the other necessarily, or that there's only one way to do things. And we're going to talk about that a bit, and I want you to really get into thinking about your own business and the way that you work with clients, and what you're doing. Is it really working, and is there maybe a way to add more value to your clients? Then I'm also going to spend a little bit of time on how do we actually determine the need of a client. I think we've got a big responsibility as financial planners to really help clients not only articulate what the need is and what it is that they're trying to achieve, but it's also about really, quantifying that. And there's a big responsibility we play in helping them get to a realistic quantification of that specific goal. Then I'm going to talk very quickly about just, charging for financial planning. If you look at goal-based versus cash flow-based, remember that's the theme. Can you charge for it, yes or no? And then lastly, I'm just going to touch on the software options that's available currently in the South African market. And this is not an exhaustive list. It's really just sort of highlighting which systems are employing what kind of approach. And if you're looking for something specific, then at least you've got some names that you can get in contact with. All right. So just the purpose of this is really just to get to what everything means, and what does it mean to you, and what does it mean to a specific type of client. And then I was going to touch on the pros and cons of each, not in very much detail, but really high level to do that. And as I said, I really want to not provoke, but I think I want to get you thinking about how can you do things better, and how can you add more value to your clients. Alrighty, so without further ado, let's get into it. I want to start off, before going into the different types of planning, is just to look at financial planning as a whole. Now, all of my courses, all of my workshops starts with these few slides, actually, where I discuss, what does financial planning, in my view, mean? And the biggest concept of financial planning is that it's very much an integrated approach, or it's an integrated practice where we've got different areas of financial planning. So you've got budget or cash flow management, and then you've got risk planning, and you've got investment planning and retirement planning. And on top of all of that sits your goals. So those are the strategies and the planning that needs to help you get to your goals. But the mistake we sometimes make is to think that these things can be looked at in isolation, and that risk planning stands alone from investment planning, and that tax planning is something we do separately to retirement planning, as an example. And my view, and the message that I'm trying to get out there, is that we need to understand that this is an integrated model. Everything is linked. Each of the areas are linked to each other, and a change or an implementation in one area definitely affects another area of financial planning. And that is sort of something that I want you to keep in the back of your mind as we go through the series, because I will keep on referring back to this. All right. So the different areas of financial planning is basically, I think it starts off with your budget or your cash management, because you can have all the goals in the world, and you can have all these plans for investment and retirement and your risk, but that needs to be achieved with some form of money. We need to be able to take money from our income that we earn and invest it into an investment. Or we need to pay for insurance to make sure that if something unforeseen happens. So everything starts off with cash management. You've got to know the goals. You've got to know exactly what it is you're trying to achieve. And then it's really about saying, okay, so how do I get there? And what if something goes wrong in the meantime? So that is very, very important. The other thing is that if you look at a lot of these models, you've got estate planning really always sitting at the top, as if it's the last thing you're going to do just before you die. Remember, you need to look at your will. What is going to happen with these assets? Where are your wealth going to go? And at that point, I always want to tell you, it's never too late, but you should have done estate planning from the very first asset that you've bought in your life. And that is why estate planning for me, when you do investments, when you do retirement planning, when you do the risk planning, you must always look at the effect on the estate. And how does it affect your estate planning? The same with income tax. Income tax runs through all of the areas of financial planning. So it is not a separate area. All right, so in future series, I'm going to go into more depth and I'll show you some pictures on it so that you get a better idea of what it is that I'm actually talking about. So in the comments, I want you to just give me a quick idea of what your perception of goal-based financial planning is and what that means to you. So if you can, in the comments below, just give us some idea of how you see goal-based financial planning, and we can just get an idea of what you're thinking. Goal-based financial planning, from my perspective, it's a very specific goal. So I want to retire, I want to provide for education, I want to provide for schooling, I want to go on a holiday, I want to buy a house. So the goal is very clear and it's very specific. And I think, I want to sort of compare it to going from, I'm in Johannesburg, and I think people that know me, I always use this analogy, that I'm in Joburg, I want to get to Cape Town. Okay, so I know I want to go to Cape Town, and I need to get to Cape Town. So as long as I go in that direction, I'm going to get to Cape Town. So whether I end up in Belleville or Gordons Bay or Hermanus or somewhere, I'm basically in Cape Town. And that is how I see goal-based financial planning. It is a very wide sort of road that we go down. There's a lot of room to move. We're not very specific. And as long as we go in the direction of the goal, we're going to end up close to the goal. Then the other thing about that goal-based financial planning does is it really starts at the end. If you think about it, I just said, so I want to end up in Cape Town. So that's actually where I start. That's where I want to be. And then I look back, so how can I get there? All right. And it's almost like, if you can imagine a map of South Africa with Johannesburg at the top, Cape Town down here, and a red line going down the middle like you would fly with Kulula or Mango. It's like straight from Joburg down to Cape Town. And that is basically, how I see goal-based financial planning. What goal-based planning does not do is it does not take into account today's circumstances. It does not take in what's going to happen every single month of the year and every year, and how my circumstances will change depending on the life stage that I'm in and the lifestyle I'm leading and so forth. So that is one of the things about goal-based and because it's very wide, it's not very specific. It is really just want to get there, I'm here, how am I going to get there the easiest? One of the benefits of goal-based financial planning is that it's easy to understand. I mean, if I tell you that, listen, I want to be in Cape Town, I want to be there on the 10th of May, and I want to be there by 12 o'clock. I know if I leave at least by 7 o'clock on a plane, I should make it by 12. If you're not flying SAA and you're delayed, so then you should make it on time. But what it makes it ideal for is it's easy to understand, as I said, but it's also ideal for people that's still far from their goal. There's still a lot of time to get to the goal. We're not close to achieving the goal, so I can still make adjustments as I go along. And just as long as I move in the direction, I'll be fine. So young people, love this kind of planning. There's not a lot of detail. It's like, I want to retire. I want to retire when I'm 60, 65, 70, or 40. It doesn't matter. And you know what time you're working with, and you can sort of get to, and we're going to look at how do I determine that need. But at least if you've got the need, it's easy to say, well, this is what you should be investing. If you're going to be investing at a certain level of risk, then we should get close. Then some of the questions that goal-based financial planning help us to answer is stuff like, when can I retire? It's quite easy to work out with goal-based financial planning. If I want to retire and I've got the time frames and I know how much I'm investing, to sort of see if I keep going at this level, when is the ideal, not when do I want to retire, but when will be the ideal time for me to retire. So it also helps to answer those questions quite easily. And then the other thing is also that if I want to retire at a specific time and I need a certain amount of money, is what kind of return do I need to be able to make it in that time frame? So it helps us answer those kind of questions, for clients and to clients. So for me, that is what goal-based financial planning is good for. So it's not so good if you want detail. It's good if you've got lots of time and you can make adjustments as you go along. Then goal-based financial planning is actually a great approach. And I must be honest that most of the things that we do, the way that they teach us to do financial needs analysis and the way that we are taught how to determine the need of a client is basically goal-based financial planning. That is what we are mostly used to in South Africa. The last thing that you can do with goal-based financial planning is to sort of just quickly determine, is a client on track, yes or no? Because if I know where they are today, what they've already saved or invested and what they've accumulated till now, and then what they are going to pay in future, I can sort of see, do an illustration of where they will end up by the time I want to retire, like 60 or 65, whatever that age is. So it's also great just to sort of help us, are we going to end up close to Cape Town or are we going to only make it to Koelsberg? Okay, so that's quite important. All right, so then based on that, I'm going to move on to cash flow-based financial planning. And again, I want you to sort of, in the comments, tell me, are you doing cash flow-based financial planning already? How do you understand cash flow-based financial planning and whether you think it's a good thing or not and if it's working for you or not? So any feedback you want to give me on your existing experience, I'll appreciate it if you can put it down in the comments, please. So I just want to have a look quickly at some of the comments here. So Linda says, what I hear you say is to start with the end in mind. We then need to look at different scenarios that could possibly impact or detail or derail, the plan to achieve the end result. Yes, that is exactly that, is to really start with the end in mind and see what the client can do today. One of the problems with goal-based financial planning is that it doesn't if I can't afford something now, it sort of takes that through until the end. Whereas when I'm done with cash flow-based financial planning, I sort of come back to that point to just highlight maybe how you can use cash flow-based financial planning to sort of say, listen, you can't afford it now, but you know what, in 5 years' time when this thing is paid off or when that child is out of the house and looking after themselves, at that point you can actually invest more. And let's see what that then does to your financial plan from that point of view. All right, so let's move on. The big difference between cash flow-based financial planning and goal-based is that cash flow is where goal-based was very wide, okay, and it wasn't detailed. Cash flow is exactly the opposite. Cash flow is very, very specific and it is very, very detailed. And that is, I think, a lot of the time the reason why advisors do not want to do cash flow-based financial planning for clients, or why clients battle to understand it. Because one of the problems with cash flow-based financial planning is because it's so specific, it can be very confusing to the client or hard to understand for the client. And that is where the skill and the trick comes in for financial advisors. I think from my perspective it's so important for us as financial planners and advisors to understand the detail behind it, but then to only show the client what's actually important to them and just give them the bottom line. But two things. Should that client start to ask you more detailed questions, you've got the answers. If the client says, I'm done, I'm stuffed, I can't, I'm not going to, doesn't even help me doing financial planning, you can tell them, but at that point, there's going to be more disposable income because of this thing that you've repaid or because of whatever's happening at that point in your life. And we can start to look for solutions about how can we actually manipulate the plan to get to the answer or to get to and achieve the goal that the client is looking for. Cash flow-based planning understands what is happening from today onwards. Okay, so obviously, financial planning is definitely not an exact science. It is, and that's also why I think we talk about the art of financial planning, because the art of financial planning means that you've got to know the stuff and then you've got to be creative around how do we do this within a framework. But if it was an exact science, I would be able to tell you exactly where you're going to end up when you retire, and but there's just too many assumptions, there's too many variables and things outside of our control. And that is the reason why even though I know what's happening today, I still need to do illustrations for the future and to assume certain things to base our illustrations on. So neither of these two approaches are actually 100% foolproof and that you'll definitely make it there. But it's two ways of sort of getting as close as you can to the goal and to the desired outcome that you are looking for. The other thing with cash flow based is it's very much, or it can be scenario based. So you can have different scenarios to say to the client, look, if you do this, then this is the route we're going to go and that's where you're going to end up. If you change this, then this is where you're going to end up. So cash flow based works extremely well for illustrating different scenarios to clients as well. The big thing with cash flow based, if you think about cash flow based, you can also think about the income statement of business, because cash flow is all about what income is coming in and what are we spending the money on. In a lot of my training, I always tell people, look, it's not about how much you earn. It's really about what you keep. That's what's important. So someone earning 100,000 Rand a month versus someone earning 10,000 Rand a month, the person earning 10,000 Rand a month can be a lot better off than the person earning that 100,000 just because they manage their money better. So cash flow base is really about managing the income statement and projecting that income statement forward from now until they want to reach the specific goal, whether it's for education or for retirement or whatever the case may be. But it's all about understanding the detail. I'm talking about down to a tax level and understanding the disposable income and all of that stuff. So that's where the confusion comes in for clients with cash flow base, or the challenges for financial advisors come in. And as I said, well, I think they shy away from this. But the question then is, okay, so when should I maybe be looking at cash flow based planning, and what is it ideal for? Well, in my view, it really becomes ideal when you are getting very close to your goal, to sort of trust, instead of having a wide angle look, starting to focus on where you want to end up and making those adjustments more accurately, as you get closer. But for me, it's when you get to retirement and after retirement, where you really need to manage your cash flow and you really need to manage your capital. Cash flow based is the only tool that really allows you to understand what is happening with an investment and why it is happening, and to run different scenarios to be able to see, if I reduce my income by 500 Rand a month, will it actually have an impact? Should I be giving up certain objectives? Because now this is what's really happening at this point in time. So that is what cash flow base is really good for. Also for investment management. So it doesn't matter, you don't have to be retired, but if you are at any point living from income that you're drawing from an investment, at that point, you should really start to look at cash flow based financial planning, because now it's really like a business managing your income and expenses. And then, as I said, well, it's great for modeling different scenarios and just playing around and say, what if we do this? What if we do that? So it's also very, very good for that. So again, back to managing the map of South Africa. The difference between this, where we had a straight line going from Joburg down to Cape Town, as Kalula and Mango would fly. With cash flow based planning, it would rather be, you'll see we're going from Joburg, then going past Van der Bijl, then we go past Paris, then we go to Kroonstad, and then all the way down to Bloem. So you have the detail, and you can see it's actually not a straight line. The road is going down, and it's all this thing going through the Karoo, and that's how you eventually end up, and you know exactly how far it is. You know exactly your options. Do I travel by car? Do I travel by bus? Do I fly? So there's a lot more detail involved with cash flow based financial planning. All right. Excuse me. The next topic that I just want to touch on very, very quickly is really this thing about, so it's all great. So whether I'm doing goal-based financial planning or whether I'm doing cash flow-based financial planning, is at the end of the day, there needs to be a goal. I need to be working towards something. Because if I get there and I don't know where I was going to, I wouldn't know that I've gotten there, or I'm ending up somewhere that I didn't intend to end up on. So for me, is how do we really determine or quantify the need? You know, it's a skill in itself to articulate a specific goal or a specific need for a client, because very few of them are able to do it themselves. But how do we now quantify this to be a realistic goal? My question is this, so how familiar does this sound? Mr. Client, so if you're going to retire today, how much would you need? And then the guy goes, I think 15,000, that should do it. Yeah. If I had no more liabilities, no nothing, I think I can live a good life and buy some on the weekend, with 15,000. And maybe it sounds realistic, maybe it's not. But for me, I think there's a better way of really helping clients to determine that need, or to quantify that need rather. A lot of clients will tell you, listen, I just want to retire comfortably. Sounds quite cool. Okay. What does that even mean? Because what's comfortable to me, and what's comfortable to Quentin, and what's comfortable to you, your client, can promise you 4 different things. So it's very, very important that we help clients to really get to what does that mean. And for us to get to what does that mean, we need to understand what sort of lifestyle it is that they're really trying to live. And once we know that, we can help them say, oh, but to live that kind of lifestyle, we need so much money. So how do we do it in practice? The thing is, you start off with their budget. And I must be honest, when I was in practice, so I sold my practice last year in March, so I'm not practicing anymore. But when I did, I thought that, when I talk to clients about their budget, most of them won't have one. And if they do have one, it sort of doesn't work out. So there's not enough money in the budget. I must be honest that I was quite surprised pleasantly with the fact that most people that I saw actually had a budget. They could produce it to me immediately, and they knew exactly what was going on. So I think there's more people looking after their money and working well with their money than we think. So if they've got this budget, and I know what it is today, so I know exactly what expenses they've got, sort of the incomes that comes in. I'm not really bothered with the income from the budget. I'm really concerned with what are they spending their money on. And if we look at that and we know, they've got DSTV and they've got armed response and they've got insurance and they're paying their bond and all that kind of stuff. If I then have a column next to that for retirement, and by the way, you can do this for death and disability and all of the needs that we can identify for clients. But if I have a column next to what the actual budget is at the moment, I can start to ask questions and say, okay, so if you were to retire today, would you still have DSTV? Would you still have the armed response? Would you still have medical aid? Okay, so at the moment, your medical aid is like 8,000 Rand a month because it's you and your wife and 2 kids. But by the time you retire, they would be out of the house. Okay, so you wouldn't need that anymore. Meaning that, in today's terms, that medical aid would maybe cost us 4,000 Rand. And that's how you then start filling in the column next to the current one to sort of say, so this would stay the same, this would stay the same, this would fall away, this would reduce, this would maybe increase. And by the time you get to the end and you add that column up, you would actually then get to what is the need for that client to be able to retire comfortably as they would. Now, that is just sort of looking at the living expenses and maintaining the lifestyle. But now what about specific goals like, you're going to drive that Mercedes for the rest of your life, or do you need to buy a new one? And those kind of questions needs to come in, and we need to add those objectives and needs on top of what it is that they need to do to maintain, the expenses that they have to pay. They don't really have a choice. You have to buy food. You have to pay water and lights, that kind of stuff. All right. So in the workshop that I do on this, it's about a 2-hour workshop. We actually go into detail with a case study and show how do you do that practically and all of that. It's obviously impossible for me to do it in 20 minutes on a webinar, but there's a practical way to sort of show that and to show how can I take that budget, break it up into different types of expenses. And I'm not talking about these as household and that. I'm just saying, so what are the stuff that I have to pay and what is the stuff that I'm sort of, it's my discretion. I decide, or I've made a decision to spend the money on something. If I know those kinds of things, I can advise a client on where can you save money? Because look, your budget's not working out, but you're spending 10,000 Rand a month on entertainment, on eating out and Steers Wacky Wednesday and that kind of stuff. And you can start to help them to sort of manage their money better, and then also to to create disposable income that they can rather deploy against their financial plan. But that's just my thoughts on determining the need. It's really to understand when someone says, I want a comfortable retirement, what does that mean to them? And then be able to say, so if you want to do A, B, and C, this is what A, B, and C will cost. And based on your budget currently, these are the expenses that will continue past your retirement. And then we can get to what a client would actually need. And just to close, I mean, as I said, you can also use that to determine their need at death, the need at disability. And I think it's a much more realistic way of doing it and then getting to a reasonable answer than asking, so how much does your wife need when you pass away, Mr. John? Yeah, but it's like 10,000 Rand a month, and then she's got 5 years, she's got to find herself a new husband. So that's not really what we want to do. We really want to help them get to a reasonable and sort of accurate answer, if you will. All right, so my second last point I want to touch on quickly is charging for financial planning, which is a new concept. And again, so I want to reiterate something that I've been preaching for a long time, is that it's not all about RDR that's coming. RDR is not forcing us to start charging, well, not that alone, but it shouldn't be the reason why we start changing the way we run our practices, the way we do business, and why we start charging for the work that we do. We need to be running our businesses on solid business principles. That's the bottom line. And RDR is making us focus on those business principles and to run a sustainable and profitable business that charges reasonably for the services and the value that we add. So my question to you is, can you charge for a goal-based financial plan? So if you think about it, my child wants to go to university, there's 10 years left, wants to go study BCom, which costs 50,000 Rand a year. And then we work out and we say, oh, you need 250,000 Rand, you need to invest 2,500 Rand a month for the next 10 years, invested quite heavily into growth assets. Then we'll get, sort of a nice nest egg together for you. Can you charge for that? All right. Then versus cash flow based financial planning, where you go into the detail, you analyze the budget you make. So you give advice from the budget level right up to all of the rest of the goals that we are trying to achieve. Now, you're welcome to put your comments down in the chat room so that we can see sort of what you feel. But for me, it's really about I can charge for both. The question is just how much can I charge? If I'm adding value, I'm professional, I'm really giving you the right advice, I'm not focusing on just selling you something that I just want to sell you because I have to, but we're really adding value and we're really making a difference in your life long term, although it maybe takes you a bit of time to realize that, you can absolutely charge for that goal-based. My opinion, it's just my opinion, is that you will be able to charge more for a cash flow-based financial plan because there's a lot more work going into it. There's a lot more to understand, and you can add a lot more from cash flow-based financial planning. But you have to deploy the right approach for the right type of client. If you can't just say, oh, so I can make more money with cash flow-based, now I'm going to do cash flow-based for all my clients. That will not work. Definitely not. You need to make sure that when you do use cash flow-based financial planning, it is for the right client for the right reason, and that it's adding the value that you are trying to add to that client's life. Then my last point, before I hand back over to Quinton, is what are the software options available? It's quite concerning for me to see how many people have systems, and they mainly use the systems really as an electronic telephone book, or to manage their workflows and their tasks, which is great. I mean, all of the systems that's available offer good value in that regard. But it's really sad to hear that a lot of people are not using the tools so much. They still got Excel-based sheets, or they build their own thing. They're not really using the systems to its full capability and its full potential. And I think that's a big lost opportunity in that regard. So what I've done is I've just had a look at the systems, just the main systems. I'm sure there's systems that I don't even know of. And that's one thing I want to ask you. So please comment down below, just, what system are you using and for how long you've been using it. I would just like to know that. But for me, mainly, the systems that are mainly goal-based focused is At Work. At Work is a goal-based financial planning, although they do have a tool that's called the Retirement Cash Flow, where they do a bit of cash flow planning or cash flow illustrations for someone that's retired, that's at retirement. And then we've got Avalon, the guys from Allegiance. So Avalon is also goal-based. Then Profida and Softfin are the guys that I found that sort of is in the goal-based mainly. So At Work, as I said, they offer a little bit of cash flow as well in one of the tools. And then the cash flow based is more X-Plan. So the X-Tools and X-Tools Plus. And then we've also got Elite Wealth. So Elite Wealth is also a dual system where there's investment or cash flow based planning around the investment section, and the risk section is more goal based. And then My Plan. So My Plan is a system that offers pure cash flow based planning, but it's only aimed at investments. So those are the systems that sort of available in the marketplace. And as I said, I would like to hear what systems you're using, whether you work for a corporate or whether you work for yourself. It doesn't matter. I would just like to know, what are you using and how long you've been using it for. All right. So if you've got any questions, please put them down in the comment section. And once Quentin is done with his session, we're going to come back, or I'm going to come back and join him, and we're going to answer some of the questions that you've asked. So thank you very much.